Greetings, Earth people. It's me again, I See Robots, from the Toys R Us Report podcast. Available exclusively at thegreatestpodcastintheworld.com. And you are listening to the SNES podcast with my boy Greg and his revolving cadre of co-hosts. All right, Greg, your time is now. Let's do this like Brutus. Hit it.
$200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES. You're listening to the SNES podcast with your hosts, Soul Blazer and George.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Super NES podcast. This is episode number 65. I am one of your regular co-hosts, Greg, and with me, as always, is my faithful other co-host, George.
I'm faithful?
Very faithful.
Yay!
You put up with me in this podcast, so I said it's like pretty faithful.
I guess so.
So, how you doing, George?
I'm alright. How are you?
Doing okay. We are coming at you today, following up on the heels of one obscure game that George picked with an obscure game that I picked. Although the legacy that this game has is not obscure by any means, so we are covering the Super NES exclusive title, Choplifter 3 in this episode, which is I suppose the best way to call it is a spiritual sequel to the original Choplifter game, which was also popular back in the early 80s. This game came out in 1994 for various regions. So anyway, I wanted to pick this game because I had known about it, but had never actually played it. This game flew under the radar for the most part. There's not very much information on there, like this game to kind of help prove that, and also eBay pickings for the game are pretty slim, which further helps reinforce the fact that nobody really either knows or cares about this game, which we'll cover toward the end of the podcast. But George, if I remember correctly, you have experience with the arcade port of the game that Sega made a while back, but not the original game. Is that correct?
Kind of. Not too much, but yes. You
played the arcade version on the Master System, correct?
Yes. Okay.
All right. So yeah. So the gameplay for this game is very similar like the original game. So why don't we talk about the original game here for a little bit then, so we can compare and contrast them later on. Choplifter is certainly one of the most popular and successful computer games like the early 80s. Anybody in the 30s or 40s has definitely played this game as a kid because of how popular that it was. The original game came out in 1982 for the Apple II, and it was a game that was hugely successful and ported to numerous systems. I think in my personal opinion, probably the best home ports of that game are the ones that are available for the ColecoVision and for the 7800s. Both those are very good ports of the game. The original game was created by a guy named Dan Gorlin. And this is during a time period in which, programmers and stuff could make games, in their own house, their own bedroom quarters, that kind of stuff. But what's curious about Mr. Gorlin is that he wasn't a programmer. He didn't set out to actually make this game. he had time to kill basically because he was trying to sell a house, and they recently picked up an Apple II and he started messing around with it, and 6 months later Choplifter was born. So kind of fell into the game design by accident, and even after that he didn't really make too many other games. So not really a game designer like per se, but they Broderbund picked up the rights of the game. They were a major computer publisher, computer publisher like the 80s and 90s. Probably best known for their Lode Runner series, and also well known for their very famous Carmen Sandiego series of games, which still around today. So the original game is very simplistic by today's standards. The basic plot of the game, there really is no plot per se, but it's because it's an action game. But the basic plot is that you control a helicopter assigned to go into enemy territory to rescue 64 hostages. The UN delegates who are being held with the enemy, and the game starts with your chopper sitting on a launch pad next to like a small building. Actually, in the manual labeled a post office, which is kind of curious. So, with a small American flag like flying next to it, and the chopper. You can bank the chopper left and right. The game uses either like a keyboard or joystick, and you have either a gun to shoot, and you also have bombs to drop. And you rescue the hostages by very carefully opening up houses in which you're captured in, and like landing the hostages aboard your chopper. Most versions of the game, the original version didn't do this, but most versions of the game, hostages speed up once your chopper's on the ground because they want to get the hell out of there too. So. But you gotta be very careful in that game, because not only can enemy tanks kill the hostages by shooting at them, you can also land the hostages yourself and crush them by accident, which is the easy way to kill people like in that game. So there's enemy tanks to deal with, which have to be dealt by shooting and bombing. There's jets that come in every now and then and shoot missiles at you, and there's also, later on in the game, there's also a spy satellite that's very fast and deadly, and can follow you back to your friendly territory. And your chopper can seat 16 people at a time, and if you die holding people, then those people are gone forever. And the gameplay is one of those very simple to learn, difficult to master games, because the objective is to try to save as many people as you can, and it's considered to be a real badge of honor to rescue all 64 hostages. A very difficult thing to do. I had the C64 version of the game as a kid, and it took me a long time to be able to pull that off. I still remember the day I actually did it. It was a very difficult thing to accomplish. So, and following up on Choplifter being so popular, Sega took the highly unusual step of getting the rights to the game and making an arcade version out of it. This is only one or two cases I can think of off the top of my head. Listeners out there can feel free to correct me and send in other games like to know of them. One of the two cases I can think about where a game started off as being a home game and then later got ported to the arcades instead of vice versa, which was the usual process. The other game I can think about that happened with was Pitfall, which Sega also released an arcade version of. The arcade version of Choplifter is very similar like the original game. All they did was upgrade the graphics. They also had the music. They also had a music of the game. The original game only had sound effects, and they broke the gameplay up into stages instead. We have to rescue X number of hostages in each stage to be able to advance. That version of the game got ported to the Master System, as we talked about earlier, and there was also a version of that game ported to the Famicom in Japan only, which seems like a very good port of the game as well. So for a long time, nothing happened with Choplifter, and then all of a sudden, kind of really out of the blue, because the arcade version of the game had come out in 1985 and 1986, the home ports. In 1991, Beam Software, which is a very prolific developer and publisher of games back in this time period, all of a sudden picked up, released a Choplifter 2 like for the Game Boy, having obtained the rights to the game like Burdabund. And Choplifter 2 kind of follows upon the same formula as the original game, very similar to the arcade game, just the fact that the main difference in that version of the game being that you can't kill hostages anymore by landing on them. So like definitely that made the game different. There's also a map in that game you can fly around to. Your progress is still linear, but you can see your progress on the map as you go from stage to stage. There's also different backgrounds. Backgrounds are also like flying around, and also it's not all just like the same locations. There's locations. There's now jungle, city, sea, desert, etc., etc. So, I remember playing this back then. Very good game. They did a good job of molding the game to the Game Boy's limited screen size and whatnot. Another big difference of that game. You now have a hit gauge. Compared to the original game, in which like one shot wasn't enough to kill you, in this version of the game, you now have you now have hit points. You can take damage, and your chopper gets repaired to repair the end of every stage. So just to add confusion to things. Later on, this game got re-released for the Game Boy in Europe, and there's also a Game Gear port of the game made. But for some weird reason, they renamed the game Choplifter 3 instead. But Choplifter 3 we're talking about was a totally different game, an original game that was made for Super NES. So,
who would I knew? We're covering an SNES game.
Of course we are, but. But yeah, it's strange because there's like two different games out there that have the same title, so go figure. So,
yeah, that's really weird.
But Choplifter 3 for the Super NES was developed under license by Beam Software by another company. I never heard of the studio. And George, I'm serious. I'm serious here. This is the name of the company, Teeny Weeny Games.
What?
I am dead serious.
What were they thinking?
So yeah, this game was actually sub-licensed out to Teeny Weeny, and they're the ones who actually developed it.
What is the history of that company?
I could not find anything about them online, which
So
shows
it means this is their only game?
Probably. Yeah, so like Beam Software had a little bit to do like the development of the game, but most of it was but a lot of it was sub-licensed by the smaller studio house. So the game was published in Europe and Japan by Ocean, which was also a very prolific publisher of games back in that time period, and was published in North America by Victor Interactive Software instead. Originally came out for the US in January 94, Europe saw the release in August, and Japan got it in September. And Choplifter 3 is really very similar to Choplifter 2, like the Game Boy. Playing this game the first time, I was surprised by how similar the two games were. There's really only a few differences between this game and the earlier Game Boy title. There's power-ups available like this game. Well, there are power-ups available in the Game Boy 1 too, but this version of the game has more power-ups. You could have things like like missiles. You can have extra bombs, stronger gun, etc., etc. Also in this version of the game, some hostages are going to be out there running around for you to rescue. But in other stages, you have to attack the buildings with several bullet or bomb hits to open them up, which they explode in very satisfying flame. Which really, wouldn't that kill everybody inside if you did that?
I was just gonna say that. Oh, there's hostages inside this building. Let's blow it up.
Well,
that's a very good idea, isn't it?
Well, yeah, that goes back to the original Choplifter, because in that game you either had to blow it up with like a bomb or a bullet or flavor enemy tank do it for you. So that kind of throw disbelief out the window kind of goes back to the original game. So yeah, there's a total of the option screen for this game is pretty good. You have you can pick from 3 difficulty levels: easy, normal, and hard. There are 15 stages altogether, like in this game, which are broken up which are broken up like into like various stages. There's missions, missions like in every stage. You can change the controls of the game, which is nice. I always appreciate the game that allows you to like remap the controls. You can also turn the game music on or off, like you play, which is a nice touch. The controls of the game are pretty simple. D-pad moves your chopper around. The L and R button at the top will allow you to flip the chopper around quickly from side to side. One button is your fire button. Another button is your special button, which uses your power-ups, bombs, etc. And the last button toggles between the various specials. There's a password system that the game uses. So, would you get like a very level? Like the Game Boy version, you're not tasked to you're not required to rescue every hostage in that stage to advance. Thank God for that.
That'd be terrible.
You instead have to instead at the start of every stage, the game tells you how many hostages you have to rescue. So so you go through the various stages. You have various enemies to deal with. Tanks, planes, guns.
Oh my!
Enemy paratroopers dropping down on you suddenly every now and then with guns, which is weird. Because those guys float down very slowly.
Yes, they're waiting to be mowed down by the helicopter.
Yep, and also new to this version of the game, like the end of every stage, there's also boss fights. So it's like some kind of big enemy weapon or building that you have to fire a weapon just like the weak point numerous times to destroy, which is kind of an interesting addition to the game. So
yes, having boss battles in like a game that was originally kind of like an arcade type game is interesting, especially where you're supposed to pick up hostages and oh wait, now there's a boss battle.
Yeah.
And it's not like there's no setup to it either. You just flying around and you just casually stroll in to a boss battle. Which was very odd for me.
Yes, it is. I have mixed feelings about the addition of the boss battles. I appreciate the fact they're here. It definitely adds.
It adds more gameplay.
Yeah, yes, it does. But you're right. They really do feel out of place because, like I said, the earlier versions of the game didn't have this. So definitely. So definitely feels interesting.
Yes.
So the controls take a little bit to get used to, but the controls for this game I think are easier to master than the original Choplifter controls because that game your chopper had 3 settings. You could either like fly left, fly right, or kind of fly like your chopper was kind of like looking at you face on and kind of bank it left and right that way. So so this game kind of does a similar things like the controls. Did you have any problems like getting the controls down?
No, how many buttons are there? You have like
3.
You use like 3 of the face buttons, and then you use the L and the R to turn around.
Yes. So
it's remembering where the toggle is for the like special weapons. For some reason, I kept forgetting which button it was, but other than that,
yes,
it was not too difficult.
Yeah. So the controls take a little bit to get the hang of, but after that they become second nature. Like no time for that. So the chopper seems like it handles fair enough. There are times I wish it was more maneuverable because I kind of felt there were some cheap hits, but since your chopper could take numerous hits usually before being destroyed, it's okay.
Yeah, I feel that's more fair than taking one hit. And then that's it.
But new this version of the game, which I appreciate. Like I said, like some stages will have an airfield, not marked by UN flag. Like your starting airbase, you always can recognize it right away because it has a UN flag. But every now and then, some stages will have an airfield halfway through the stage or whatnot with a different flag flying, and if you and you can use those airfields to get repaired, which is a nice touch. So
yes, very, very helpful, and it doesn't seem like there's a limit to how much you can use that.
No, there isn't, which I also appreciate very much.
Yes.
So your chopper also can hold 16 people at max. Same as the original version of the game. You have to actually bring them back to your home base to drop them off, the credit for it. This game preserves the very nice touch that the original game had, which I really think is very cute. Every now and then, when you're dropping out the hostages safely, one of them turn around and wave at you, which is a very nice touch.
Yeah, that's the last one.
Yeah.
The last one you drop when you drop everyone off. The last one sits there for a second.
It was more random, like original computer version of the game. It wasn't always it wasn't always last person like wave at you, but again, like I said, this version keeps that touch from the earlier game, which I thought was very nice. So
makes me think of was it Metal Slug when you save somebody, they give you their underwear.
Yeah, I forgot about that. What a crazy, weird game Metal Slug is, but
it's a really good series.
Yes, it is. It's also very, very bizarre.
Yes.
So, what do you think about the graphics? The graphics of this game, George?
It looks nice. I mean, it looks nice, but there's not much to it because it's basically just mountains and stuff like that. I mean, what do you say about it? The houses look like houses. They look fun. They're not. It's nothing like too crazy. I mean, They definitely look like what they're supposed to be. The bosses actually look pretty cool.
Yes, they do. Yep.
So.
Yeah, I thought the graphics were fine. I kind of expected, I kind of felt that I was kind of hoping for a bit more for an 94 game. I thought this game was a little bit lacking as far as the graphical touches and quality went. I mean, Chopper looks fine, but looks fine. But for the Chopper, for example, like in the Urban Strike games, that looks much better. There's some stages have parallax scrolling and some stages don't, which is very bizarre to me. I don't understand why some have and some don't.
Yes.
The buildings, the cities and whatnot, your enemies look fine. Those look like pretty good. No problems there, so.
I feel like the gameplay is more of a problem than the graphics.
How do you mean?
Because you're doing the same thing over and over again, and it just, at least for me, became very tedious.
Yeah, I was gonna touch upon this kind of later on, but since you brought it up, the main knock about this game is the fact that I think this game is pretty much one of the. I think this game is pretty much one of those I don't know, maybe a bit. You might have a better term for this than I do, George, but I kind of think of it as falling into the one and done genre, whereas the game's fun the first time you play it, but after you beat the game, there's no replay value to it.
Yeah, it's definitely more of a arcade game than like a game that you're gonna sit down and play through in one sitting or something, because it's you definitely need to take a break because it's the same thing over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't know how many levels there are in this game.
15.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, I was able to beat the game. You have to put in about maybe 5 hours of game time into it. So
5 hours. I read that it took 2 hours or something to beat it.
This is also the you counting deaths and other stuff like that. So it's I think you're right. I think if somebody there's no long play of this online, curiously enough, which again shows you how obscure this game is. Stages. If you know what you're doing, stages. If you know what you're doing, you can probably finish stages anywhere from 5-10 minutes. So 2 hours sounds about right to an experienced player. But like I said, the game is good. The game is good for what it offers you. But like you said, it does kind of get boring after a while. And after you beat the game, there's nothing new here to bring you back to it unless you want to try to get a higher difficulty level.
Right.
So this would make a great rental. But as far as actually buying it, I think so.
Unless you were getting it for a few bucks.
Right. Yeah. So,
yeah.
The music I thought was pretty good. I was surprised by how good the music was.
Yeah.
Very appropriate songs, I thought. Like, the jungle stage had a very jungle beat to it. The city stage, the city stage is like kind of like a rock theme going on with it. Good audio quality. I mean, I think it almost seems like more attention was paid to the audio than it was to the graphics.
Okay, I can really see why you say that.
But pretty good music actually, I thought.
Yeah.
The difficulty ramps up. The difficulty ramps up at a pretty good level, I thought. Also, the early stages are challenging without being overly difficult, and the difficulty ramps up pretty well as you go on. There's definitely some areas where special weapons are godsend to you, and the bosses it's possible to beat unless you have special weapons on hand.
Yeah, some of those bosses can be pretty rough.
Yes.
I found myself fighting the first boss without any special weapons.
Oh, is that the massive artillery gun?
Yeah, the one that's driving back and forth.
Okay, yeah, different boss then. Okay, alright.
Yeah, the one that's on the bridge or whatever that's driving back and forth. And
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it starts shooting wildly the further you progress in the battle, but yeah, I was forced to do that battle without any special weapons. And if you have enough patience, actually, you'll be able to take it out.
Yeah, there's no there's no boss gauge, unfortunately, so you don't know how damaged the thing is.
Right, and the problem is if you're destroyed while fighting that boss, you respawn in that boss battle.
Yeah, I actually don't mind that because the fact that
Well, the problem is you lose your weapons.
Right, exactly, and
so.
And it's good and bad. I appreciate the fact that I put you right back there, right back to try again. But yeah, there's no special weapons, and I believe that the damage that did the boss resets.
Yes, it does. It starts the battle all over again.
Yep. So that could be a problem. So
yeah.
But difficulty ramps up pretty well, I thought. I do like the, I do really like that eye candy screen, between stages, that shows shows a picture of the guy sitting in that chair in the high tech room, with that fancy arm console and a cup of coffee, near him. That nice touch.
yeah. I mean, there's stuff like that added to the whole map screen and everything.
Right. Let me do a correction of what I said earlier, actually. You can only hold 10 people playing a chapter one time, not 16. I was thinking about the earlier games still, so. But, I do appreciate the fact, however, that they changed it. I do appreciate the fact how they made it easier, they easier to rescue them, though, by not, crushing them as you land on them.
Yeah, I probably would have not been able to get that far in the game if I just started crushing everybody.
Yeah, that was the big thing I had to watch out for. Feeling like the original game.
Yes.
Especially with a crowd of, especially there's a crowd of hostages around you or whatnot. So, but really not too much else to say about this. It's pretty much an action game in keeping with its predecessors, for sure. Sega did release a couple of inspired by Choplifter games later on, also. Air Rescue was an arcade game that came out in 1991, designed for System 32 hardware. That was a first-person pseudo 3D take on Choplifter. Never played this game, but I checked out a video of it, and it looks like a pretty good game. That game did get ported, George, to the Sega Master System as well the following year. So
yay!
So but for that version of the game, because of the limitations of the system, the pseudo first-person look was taken out and replaced by your standard side-scrolling stuff. So. They could have used the glasses for it, I think, but 92 was pretty late Master System release games. They probably didn't want to bother with it. So,
Yeah.
And in 2012, a remake of the original game called Choplifter HD came out for the Xbox Live Arcade, PlayStation Network, and Windows.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, the original guy who created the game, Dan Gorlin, was involved as an advisor, and the game was published by InXIO Entertainment, which is a company founded by Brian Fargo, the former CEO of Interplay, and they also. They're the company who made Wasteland 2, and also and they're also coming out with Barge Tale 4 and the new Planescape game. So
I totally forgot about all of that.
Yeah, very good studio.
Oh man.
So yeah, this is back in the early days. Choplifter HD was one of the first games they did actually. So.
Oh, okay.
So I've not played this. I've not played this. I forgot this came out. I'm curious now to check it out. But yeah, because the original game I have a lot of affection for, and I think it's my affection for the original game that's carrying my take on this game for a little bit. Because I have a very strong nostalgia glasses as far as the series goes. But for the most part, I like this game. I do recognize it has some serious flaws. Like I said, I think this game, like I said, is fun to play your first time through. It's definitely challenging enough to kind of keep it coming back. She doesn't do anything great, but I thought they did a great job of kind of making it a spiritual sequel like the original game, because it really does feel like an enhanced version of Choplifter, like in many ways. I do appreciate the love and care that was paid to the franchise. Some spiritual sequels of games are so far off the mark as far as what they're originally trying to go for. That's almost like totally pays no homage at all to it. But this game does, I think. It really does feel like a very modern take on Choplifter. So, the biggest problem with the game, like I said, is once you beat it, there's very little incentive to go back to it. It's definitely a game that you will play for a few days and then get tired of it. Either when you beat it or you're stuck somewhere, put it to one side and you'll probably never go back to it again for years. So, if you're a fan of the game, the original game, by all means check this out, because I think this game does a very good job of emulating the look and feel the original game very well. If you like games like Urban Strike or whatnot, because games where you control Choplifters are pretty, choppers are pretty few and far between. So if you're a fan of those genres, definitely check this one out. Otherwise, just try it out in emulation if you're curious. There's no reason to plunk down money for a copy of the game, because this game is a little bit pricey because of its scarcity. We'll talk about that here in a moment. But,
boy.
I know, George, you kind of said similar things about the game that I just did. Do you have any other final thoughts or summary as far as the game goes?
It was an interesting game to play. It's an interesting game. It has an interesting background, but in the end, when you go and play it, I'm sure a lot of people are gonna play it for a little bit and then just get very bored with it, because it is the same thing over and over. The only things that really change are basically the bosses and the backgrounds, but
the stage design does change, but the stage design doesn't really change enough to give it a new feel to it. It's like you're just doing these. You're just being asked to do something slightly different instead. So I mean, the stages like more varied, or better yet, if you had choice stages. If you had, for example, a chance to either go a land route or an ocean route instead to get somewhere, those things really would add some replay value to the game. But as it is, I think you're right. Like I said, I think anybody who grew up playing this game like I did will probably enjoy the game a bit more. But in the end, like I said, I think this game really fits like a one and done thing. I still find the whole concept of the game very fun, though. I appreciate the fact that Choplifter HD came out. I really, a modern take on this game, maybe like virtual reality. I think like it'd be a lot of fun. Fun to play. I think.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I don't agree with that.
Yeah, and this game actually does remind me a little bit about another older game. Have you ever played Risk and Refractorous, George?
I have not.
Okay, yeah, this game has some similarities. This game has some similarities like that game also.
Okay.
That was an early LucasArts game. That came out for the Sega. I'm sorry, the Atari. The Atari 5200 and personal computers all over the time period. So, but they So anyway, there's no codes, cheats, hidden things like in this game. Just the passwords, which you can find online like easily enough. Because this game was not super popular. Actually, this game. Oh, sorry. One more thing. This game did review very well like when it came out. I think because of the fact that the game was kind of interesting. The major like review of the game that I found just pretty much said that here we go. Electronic Gaming Monthly gave it a 7.8 out of 10, commenting that fans of military simulators will definitely feel at home like this game. I'm not sure about that, but the grade sounds about right to me.
Yeah.
So,
something like that.
GamePro also gave this like a very positive review. Just say, calling like a very like fast and great looking game. Fast, yes. Great looking, yeah. Like I said, '94. There were Super NES games that looked better than this game for sure, but hey, this was a low budget release. I mean, teeny weeny studios, really. So, considering how much the game probably cost to make, the credits show a team about a dozen people. So, yeah, I mean, for a low budget release, but it looks and plays fine. So, anyway, because of the fact the game wasn't super popular, however, it's a little bit hard to find. I mean, there are copies available on eBay, but not many. There's only 5 copies currently listed, on there, and only 22 copies sold recently. Again, huge difference between cart and CIB. Actually, cart prices for this game are not that bad considering the spike that Super NES prices are going through these days. You can these prices include shipping. You can have you can pick this game up cart only for anywhere between $15 to $28.
Wow.
And there were 2 CIB copies that sold recently. One for $32 and one for $44.
No, thank you.
Yeah, $15. I might get it for $15 to complete the collection, but because that's not a horrible price to pay. There are many Super NES games that charge a lot more than that, or should they go for a lot more than that. So, but yeah, just for like occasional play, probably not worth it. You're probably better off just like emulating it.
Yeah.
So,
I wouldn't pay $15 for that.
No.
I'm not saying that's bad, it's just... No.
Yeah, the bright side is that one for your collection, $15 is not crazy. Like I said, there are a lot of games out there that are much more expensive. You expensive card only like this, but
yes.
But speaking about expensive games, there's somebody from one of the Facebook groups was posted today's matter of fact posted a picture about a Toys R Us ad from 1994. Where front and center in like the Super NES advertisement was they announced a price reduction on Earthbound for like $30. And I'm just like, oh man, I've only had a time machine to go back in time and buy like a ton of those.
It's a shame. It was just marketed poorly is the only problem.
Yeah, Earthbound is a very weird game. I like the game a lot. We'll have to cover it for the podcast at some point. But
yes, it is a very good game.
It's a game that it's a game that didn't do very well at the time, but it's really developed a cult following since then. So, and for a long time,
I mean, the series was doing great over in Japan. I think
Japan.
The biggest problem was that not a lot of people bought it over here because it was just marketed improperly. And you know what happens with things that aren't marketed well.
Right. The fact the game came with a game book was very impressive. Very few games have done that. So, and I'm glad this game is available now on the Virtual Console because for a long time, it wasn't available that way. So
also they released the original Mother, which is what the series is called in Japan.
Yeah.
They translated it.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Well, the game already had been available because the game was going to be released for the NES. The game got as far as being translated for it, but the ROM never got published. So that version of the game was floating around for years.
I was wondering what they were going to call it because, basically,
they might have kept it. Yeah,
when Earthbound came out,
so
it was. It wasn't like a sequel or anything as far as we knew.
Yeah.
And then you released this game that was before that game, so they just put the word beginnings in front of it over here. It's like, okay, you know what? You released it and you gave it a title and we can get it. All right, I'll give it to you.
Yeah, this is a little bit off the beaten track, but the original. I played the ROM version of the translated NES Mother years ago when it first came out, and for a long time that game was unfinishable because the ROM that had been dumped, the copy protection was still present in it. So halfway through the game, a message would come up saying, you're playing an unauthorized copy of this game. Please do not copy our games on Nintendo. So it took a long time for a good version of that game to be dumped to allow you to get around that. They didn't bring up the message. So,
right.
And again, there's something similar happens to that also in some copies of Earthbound, like the final boss fight. So, but it's even more nasty in that game because it will delete your saves. We just need Mother 3 to get released over here to finish the trilogy then.
Yes, I'm wondering if they're going to do that.
Well, again, there is a fan translated version of the game out there that's playable. So
yeah, there's a fan patch out there.
Thank God for fans willing to do all the work, offering no money.
I mean, I think they even contacted Nintendo saying that they can take their localization, their translation, and use it if they wanted to, but they didn't agree to it. It's so weird.
Yeah.
I mean, does that mean that they want to do it themselves, or what?
No, Nintendo, as we know, is very strict about enforcing their copyrights.
Oh yes, I know a lot of fan games have been shut down due to them.
Yeah, as we've seen, it recently demonstrated with the excellent fan-made version, fan-made upgraded versions of Pokemon and Metroid 2. So, but good thing I grabbed those ROMs.
Yeah.
You'll be fitting with bye-bye, but anyway, we're getting way off the topic here.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
We're talking about SNES games, right? Pokemon and
kind of. Franchises. Actually, Pokemon never did come on the Super NES, did it?
No, it didn't.
Yeah. But
there's a weird pirated bootleg of Pokemon Yellow for the NES.
Right.
So there's that.
Yeah. It could have. Pokemon came out in, like, what, 91, I think, originally, like, the Game Boy, so, I'm sorry, later than that. Pokemon kept the Game Boy going, Link to the Game Boy Color came out. That was like I want to say 94, 95, like, when that game came out. It was a late game, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway. Speaking of Super NES games, George, it's your pick next time. What game are we going to grace the listeners with?
We are going to play Bust a Move, also known as Puzzle Bobble.
Yes.
I prefer that second name.
Yeah, Capcom game, right?
Capcom?
Yeah, that was a Capcom game.
I don't think so.
Or is it SNK?
You're asking me the question. You are asking me questions that I do not know the answers to. It's a Taito game.
Taito, okay, alright, yeah. Yeah, okay, so... Yeah, so I have not played Bust a Move in a long time, so it's gotta be interesting. Never played the Super NES version, so...
The American cover for a few of them had some... It was just weird. There was one with a baby with sunglasses on. It was just...
I remember that cover now, yes!
Yeah.
That's a weird cover.
Yeah.
I think probably the actual cover is still weirder than that, but that's definitely a weird one.
Yeah, I don't know anymore.
So yeah, it should be interesting. But
it's a good game.
Yeah, I believe it. Like we covered way back when in episode 12, I think, a game called Super Buster Brothers, which is also kind of similar to Bust a Move. That game is Capcom. That's a Capcom game. I was thinking about. So,
is it similar?
Yeah, it is similar. I think Super Buster Brothers uses more action elements in that game than this one does. That's the main difference. But anyway, we will talk all about that like in length next time. So
yes.
If you like the podcast, please check us out. Like on our Facebook page. We also would very much appreciate like review like on iTunes because that always helps. We are a proud member of both the Retro Junkies and Throwback Networks, which are filled with many other great retro gaming and non-gaming related podcasts, including a podcast on the Sega Master System, to which my co-host George here also does. So, you can email me directly at the SNESpodcast@yahoo.com with any questions, comments, suggestions, etc. And George, where can the other listeners find you?
Oh boy, you can find me on Twitter if you look up at Mr. Chief at MISTURCHEF. A lot of weird stuff going on there. I have a video of my Atari Jaguar being weird. I talk about how blue-backed PS2 games are poo-poo, and just other stuff. Other than that, you can look up my podcasts that I do. The Box 4, PlayStation Power, a podcast I do with Greg. Both of those are not family-friendly, and then I do Master System Masterpieces, which is. So, I think that's it.
Yes. Yeah, I never had any problems with Blu-ray discs, but I remember lots of people having issues, so I'll check that out. So anyway, we appreciate very much you listening to us. Thank you again, always for your support, and we'll see, and we'll catch you again next time. Take care, all.
Goodbye.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man. Now you're playing with power. Deep power.